The first thing Rachel noticed about the house was how quiet it felt. Not peaceful quiet, dead quiet. The kind of silence that made every small sound feel wrong. The moving truck rumbled away down the street. "Honestly," Mark said, dropping another box near the front door, "for this price, we practically robbed the seller." The house had been cheap. Too cheap. 5 bedrooms, huge basement, large backyard, good neighborhood. The realtor claimed the previous owners moved suddenly because of a job transfer. But Rachel remembered the way the woman avoided eye contact, especially when Rachel asked why the house had been sitting empty for nearly 2 years. Their 8-year-old son, Ethan, sprinted through the hallway. "Mom," Ethan yelled, "there's a room upstairs with weird wallpaper." "Don't unpack without us," Rachel called. The house smelled old. Not moldy exactly, just sealed, like air trapped inside something for too long. By sunset, exhaustion settled into everyone's bones. Half the boxes remained unopened. The kitchen was chaos. Mark ordered pizza while Rachel wandered through the upstairs hallway carrying folded blankets. That was when she noticed the scratch marks, thin lines carved into the wooden floor near the far wall. Parallel, as if something heavy had been dragged repeatedly across the hallway. She crouched down. The marks stopped abruptly beneath a section of wallpaper. Rachel touched the wall. Hollow. "Mark?" she called. He appeared carrying paper plates. "What?" She knocked again. Thunk, thunk. Definitely hollow. "Huh," Mark muttered. "Maybe there used to be a closet there." Rachel frowned. "Wouldn't that be on the blueprint?" Mark shrugged. "Old houses get remodeled." He walked away casually, but Rachel kept staring at the wall long after he left. Something about it bothered her. That night she couldn't sleep. The house creaked constantly, pipes knocking, wood settling, soft sounds drifting through the hallway. At 2:13 a.m., Rachel opened her eyes. Someone was walking upstairs. Slow footsteps. Creak. Pause. Creak. Mark slept beside her, breathing heavily. Rachel listened carefully. The footsteps stopped directly outside their bedroom. Silence. Then 3 knocks. Soft. Deliberate. Rachel sat upright. "Mark," she whispered. No response. Another knock. Her heart hammered. She climbed out of bed and opened the door quickly. The hallway was empty. Cold air drifted through the darkness. At the far end of the hall, she noticed something strange. A thin strip of light where the wall should have been. Rachel frowned. That wasn't there before. She walked slowly down the hallway. Every instinct screamed at her to stop. But curiosity pulled harder. As she approached, her stomach tightened. A door stood in the wall. Dark wood, brass knob, old-fashioned design. Rachel stopped cold. No. The wall had been completely blank earlier. She knew it. The scratch marks on the floor now led directly to the door. Her breathing became shallow. "Mark," she whispered louder. No answer. The house felt different suddenly. Still, watching. Rachel reached toward the knob but hesitated. Cold radiated from the wood, not cool, freezing, like touching ice. She twisted the knob slowly. The hinges groaned. Beyond the doorway stretched another hallway, the same hallway, but ruined. Rachel froze. The wallpaper peeled in long strips, exposing black rot beneath. The ceiling sagged. Water stains covered everything. Dust floated thick in the air. The family photos hanging on the wall were identical to theirs, except aged, decayed. One frame hung crooked, glass shattered. Rachel stared in horror. It was their house, but abandoned, rotting. Darkness swallowed the far end of the corridor. A terrible smell drifted outward, mold, wet wood, and something worse underneath, something sour and old. Rachel slammed the door shut instantly. The sound echoed through the house. Mark jolted awake behind her. "What the hell are you doing?" Rachel spun around, trembling. "There's a door!" "What?" "In the hallway." Mark stared at her sleepily before walking past. Rachel followed close behind. But when they reached the end of the hall, nothing, just wallpaper, no door. Rachel felt the blood drain from her face. "It was right here," she whispered. Mark rubbed his eyes. "You were dreaming." "I wasn't." "You've been stressed all week." Rachel backed away slowly. The scratch marks remained on the floor. She pointed at them immediately. "What about those?" Mark glanced down. His expression changed slightly. "Maybe movers dragged furniture." Rachel said nothing, because the scratches were fresh now, fresh enough that tiny wood splinters still curled beside them. The next morning, Rachel searched through the house documents while Mark took the kids grocery shopping. Blueprints covered the dining table, every wall, every room, every hallway, no door, no hidden room, nothing. Yet the measurements bothered her. The upstairs hallway dimensions didn't add up correctly. According to the blueprint, the hallway should have ended 3 feet earlier, meaning there was empty space inside the wall. Rachel felt cold. At noon, she called the realtor. The woman answered nervously. "Hi, this is Rachel Harper. We bought the house on Red Cedar Lane." Long pause. "Yes, I have a question about the upstairs hallway." Silence again. Then the realtor spoke carefully. "What kind of question?" Rachel's stomach tightened. "There's space inside the wall." Another silence, this one longer. Finally, the realtor sighed quietly. "You should leave that alone." Rachel froze. "What?" "The previous owners made complaints too." Rachel gripped the phone harder. "Complaints about what?" The woman lowered her voice. "They claimed a door appeared at night." Rachel's heart nearly stopped. "You knew?" "I thought they were lying." The realtor whispered quickly. "People say strange things when they want to break contracts." "What happened to them?" "I don't know." "You sold us this house without mentioning any of this?" The realtor suddenly sounded frightened. "Mrs. Harper, if the door appears..." Static crackled loudly across the phone. Then the line went dead. Rachel stared at the disconnected call. The house groaned softly behind her. That evening, Ethan refused to sleep alone. "There's somebody in the hallway," he whispered. Rachel sat beside him immediately. "What did you see?" "A lady." Every muscle in Rachel's body tightened. "What lady?" "She was standing near the bathroom." "What did she look like?" Ethan swallowed hard. "She looked like you." Rachel stopped breathing. "Excuse me?" "But old," Ethan whispered. "And dirty." Rachel forced a smile she didn't feel. "You had a bad dream." "No," Ethan insisted. She was crying. That night, Rachel stayed awake intentionally. 11:47 p.m., 12:26 a.m., 1:03 a.m. The hallway remained empty. At 1:41 a.m., the temperature dropped suddenly. Rachel felt it instantly. The bedroom became freezing cold. Beside her, Mark stirred. "What the hell?" Then came the sound. Scratch, 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 like wood dragging across wood. Rachel slowly opened the bedroom door. The hallway light flickered weakly, and there it was again. The door, exactly where she remembered, this time standing slightly open. Darkness leaked from the crack. Mark stepped beside her silently. For the first time, Rachel saw genuine fear on his face. "You see it too?" she whispered. Mark nodded slowly. The scratching sound continued from inside. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Something moving in the other house. Rachel should have closed the door. Instead, she opened it wider. The smell hit instantly. Rot, dust, decay. The ruined hallway stretched endlessly before them. Everything looked older now, more damaged. Family photos lined the walls. Their family photos, but altered. In one picture, Rachel's face had been scratched out completely. In another, Ethan appeared missing. Only empty space beside Lily. Mark whispered, This isn't possible. Then they heard footsteps upstairs, heavy footsteps above them, in the other house. Rachel looked upward slowly. The ceiling creaked. Someone was moving directly overhead. A loud bang echoed from the second floor. Lily suddenly screamed from the real house behind them. Mark spun instantly. "Kids!" They ran back through the doorway. The second they crossed into their real hallway, the door slammed shut behind them violently. Lily stood crying near her bedroom. "There's a man in my closet." Mark opened the closet immediately. Empty. But Rachel noticed muddy footprints on the carpet. Large footprints, leading out of the closet and disappearing halfway across the room. Stress, hallucinations, old house noises. Mark tried explaining everything rationally during breakfast, until Ethan interrupted quietly. "Who are the people outside?" Rachel looked toward the window. No one stood there. "What people?" Ethan pointed. "In the backyard." Rachel walked carefully to the glass. At first, she saw nothing. Then movement. 3 figures stood near the fence line, perfectly still, watching the house, too far away to see clearly. Rachel's pulse quickened. "Mark." He joined her. The figures were gone. Only empty yard remained, but deep footprints covered the wet grass. That afternoon, Rachel searched county records online. The property history stretched back 40 years. 3 families, 2 disappearances, 1 suicide. Her hands shook scrolling through the reports. In 1998, a woman named Claire Bennett vanished with her 2 children. No signs of forced entry, no bodies recovered. Then in 2011, the homeowner Robert Vance was found hanging in the basement. According to police notes, he repeatedly wrote the same sentence on the walls before his death. "The other house is hungry." Rachel closed the laptop immediately. That night, the power went out. Every light died simultaneously. The house fell into absolute darkness. Lily began crying upstairs. Mark grabbed flashlights while Rachel checked the fuse box. Nothing appeared wrong. Then came the sound again. Scratch, 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 directly outside the basement door. Mark shined his flashlight downward. Fresh scratches covered the wood. Something on the other side was dragging against it slowly. Rachel whispered, "Open it." Mark looked at her like she was insane, but he reached for the knob. The basement stairs descended into darkness. Cold air drifted upward. The scratching stopped. Mark aimed the flashlight downward carefully. The beam illuminated old concrete steps, water stains, dust, then footprints, wet footprints, leading upward from the basement. Rachel's chest tightened. Those weren't there earlier. Mark started downward cautiously. Rachel followed. The basement smelled terrible, like standing water and dead insects. At the bottom of the stairs, the flashlight beam swept across the room. Boxes, old shelves, broken furniture, and another door. Rachel froze again. A dark wooden door standing alone against the far wall. Same brass knob, same scratches on the floor. "No," Mark whispered. The basement blueprint never showed another room. The door creaked open slowly by itself. Darkness beyond. Then a voice, soft, weak. "Help me." Rachel nearly collapsed. It was her voice. Mark grabbed her arm hard. "We're leaving." But the voice came again, closer this time. "Please." Rachel stepped toward the doorway involuntarily. The darkness inside shifted. Then she saw herself standing there, older, thin, covered in dirt and blood, her eyes hollow, skin pale gray. Future Rachel stared at her with absolute terror. "Don't let it learn you," she whispered. Then something moved behind her. A shape, tall, wrong. Its limbs bent backward, its head scraped the ceiling. Rachel screamed. The creature lunged forward suddenly, and the door slammed shut violently. The entire basement shook. Dust exploded from the ceiling. Lily screamed upstairs again. Mark dragged Rachel back toward the stairs. Halfway up, they heard banging erupt from behind the basement walls, not inside the room, inside the walls themselves, as if dozens of people pounded desperately from within the house. The next morning, they packed immediately. No arguments, no hesitation. Mark called hotels while Rachel stuffed clothes into suitcases. Ethan stood near the hallway silently. "What's wrong?" Rachel asked. He looked frightened. The door moved. Rachel slowly turned. He pointed farther down the hall. The scratch marks had lengthened overnight. The door's outline now faintly visible beneath the wallpaper, like something underneath pushed outward, trying to emerge permanently. Mark grabbed the car keys. "We're done." Rain hammered the house as they loaded luggage outside. Rachel strapped Lily into her seat while Ethan climbed into the back quietly. Mark carried the final box from the porch, then stopped moving. Rachel frowned. "Mark?" He stood frozen, staring into the upstairs window. Rachel followed his gaze. Someone watched them from inside. A woman. Old Rachel, dirty hands pressed against the glass. Behind her stood several shadowy figures motionless in the hallway. Mark whispered, "Get in the car." He backed away slowly. The upstairs light flickered. The figures vanished. Mark jumped into the driver's seat immediately. The engine sputtered, then died. No, no, no. He tried again. Nothing. The radio crackled suddenly with static. Then a voice whispered through the speakers, "Stay." Rachel grabbed the kids while Mark cursed, repeatedly turning the key. The windshield fogged instantly. Words slowly appeared, written from the inside. "You came from here." Lily began screaming uncontrollably. Then every house light turned on simultaneously. All the windows glowed bright yellow. Shapes moved behind every curtain. Dozens of them, watching. Mark finally got the engine running. They peeled away from the curb violently. Rachel looked back once. The front door of the house stood open, and inside the darkness. The other house waited. 3 days later, they stayed in a motel outside Dallas. Rachel barely slept. None of them did. Ethan stopped talking almost entirely. Lily cried whenever lights turned off. Mark spent hours arguing with lawyers and realtors trying to break ownership contracts. Then came the call. The realtor was dead. Single car accident. According to police, she crashed into a highway divider at full speed. Witnesses claimed she was screaming before impact, repeating one sentence over and over. "There are 2 houses." Rachel hung up, shaking. That night she dreamed of the hallway again, the ruined hallway. She walked through decay and darkness while distant voices whispered behind the walls. At the far end stood the door to Ethan's room. Inside sat Ethan, older now, adult Ethan, thin and terrified. "Mom," he whispered, "it followed us." Rachel woke, gasping. The motel room was freezing cold. Water dripped softly somewhere nearby. Then she noticed the smell. Mold, rot, wet wood. Rachel sat up slowly. The motel wallpaper near the bathroom bulged outward slightly. Scratch marks covered the floor beneath it. No. A soft knock came from inside the wall. 3 deliberate taps. Mark woke immediately, seeing her expression. "What is it?" Rachel pointed silently. Another knock echoed. The wallpaper split slowly down the middle. Darkness appeared underneath. Then the edge of a wooden door pushed outward. Mark backed away, horrified. "That's impossible." The brass knob turned slowly. The door opened, and beyond it stretched the ruined motel room. Same furniture, same beds, same family photos they'd unpacked temporarily. All rotten, destroyed. Future Rachel stood inside again, this time crying openly. "You waited too long," she whispered. Behind her, shadows crawled along the walls unnaturally. Rachel grabbed the children instantly. Mark shouted, "Close it!" But before they could move, Ethan walked toward the doorway. Calm, expressionless. "Ethan!" He stopped near the threshold. Something inside the ruined room whispered his name lovingly. Rachel heard it clearly. A woman's voice. Not hers. Not human either. Ethan reached toward the darkness. Then old Rachel screamed suddenly, "Don't let him cross!" The shadows exploded forward. Mark slammed the door shut with all his strength. The motel room lights burst instantly. Glass shattered everywhere. Lily shrieked, and from behind the closed door came furious pounding. Bang, bang, bang. The entire wall shook. Then silence. Complete silence. Mark grabbed Ethan hard. "We're leaving now." But when he opened the motel room door, they weren't in the motel anymore. Rachel stopped breathing. Outside stretched the decayed hallway of the other house. Rotting wallpaper peeled from endless walls. Dark water dripped from the ceiling. Family photographs covered every surface. Hundreds of them, different families, different years, all standing inside the same house. Every photo eventually scratched out or burned. At the end of the hallway stood the tall creature Rachel saw before. Its body twisted impossibly, skin stretched too tightly over elongated limbs. Its face changed constantly, sometimes human, sometimes blank, sometimes resembling Rachel herself. The creature tilted its head slowly, then smiled, and every door in the hallway opened at once.